Everybody. Tonight is the continuation of our special council meeting that we held on July 21st. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We do have all members of council in attendance this evening. We acknowledge that this land is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi peoples, and of the Huron-Wendat peoples. And we value, I was going to try to read it up there, but we value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and of all the original peoples of Turtle Island who have been living and working on the land from time immemorial. Any declarations of conflicts of interest from members of council this evening? Seeing none, if you find yourself in conflict, please let us know later. I need a mover and a seconder of the adoption of the published agenda for today, August 12th, and this is the Part 2 agenda. If you are following along, you will notice that the bylaw has revisions and that the Lazaline report has changed. I wanted to make sure that I pointed that out. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Kim Verbeek. Any questions? All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Before we go back to regroup from reports from administration, I will go to CAO Jerusevich.
Thank you, and good evening, council and public. We are here tonight to continue the public meeting from July 21st for the application regarding a temporary use bylaw amendment at the property known as 66556 Concession, or the Hearn property. As with any zoning bylaw application, the applicant must demonstrate and council must ensure it is satisfied that the application will meet all relevant policies, and Director Chadwick will get into that in a few minutes. Administration's role in this process is only to provide professional advice and to continue to support council with whatever decision is made on this application. Throughout this process, we have received many inquiries, letters of objections, and letters of support. It has been wonderful to see our residents and stakeholders engaged in municipal policy so frequently. I encourage our residents to continue to provide input that is both constructive and respectful and driven by fact. Success for our town rests in our relationship, being council, administration, and the public, working together to achieve fairness within the approved policies and legislation. Please be assured that any complaints or concerns brought forward during this process are taken very seriously and are subject to a thorough and fair investigation. It is essential that all parties involved in any complaint are heard and that due process is followed to ensure transparency and integrity. We must also ensure that it is a fair process for both the resident and the employee. Tonight, we will hear from the planning department about an application that has had input on it by 4 different registered professional planners, and council will ultimately be asked to make a decision. I will now pass it on to Lori Chadwick, our Director of Development Services, to begin the recap from July 21st.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, a good evening to all of you on council, as well as members of the public and the applicants. As CAO Jerusevich has indicated, the purpose of today's meeting is to continue with the public meeting held on July 21st for a proposed temporary ZBA. As you'll recall, the applicants are seeking council's permission to allow an existing tent structure to be used as an on-farm diversified use, specifically an event venue, for a temporary period expiring on October 31st of this year. To summarize and to provide you with a bit of context, if a property owner cannot fully comply with a regulation in the zoning bylaw, permission must be granted by council or the Committee of Adjustment, depending on what's delegated, to deviate from the specific regulation. In the case of the application before you, the applicant is seeking council's permission to deviate from the specific zoning bylaw regulation pertaining to gross floor area of an accessory building used for an OFDU. The maximum gross floor area for OFDUs in an accessory building in the zoning bylaw is 90 square meters. 371 square meters is being proposed. Therefore, that is the regulation that the applicant is seeking to deviate from. And through that, this is why we are here before council to provide you with information on that application. It's important to note that the maximum gross floor area for OFDUs in accessory buildings is Essex specific. That regulation is Essex specific in our zoning bylaw. In other words, the PPS and the OMAFA guidelines do not prescribe maximum gross floor area for OFDUs in accessory buildings. However, the guidelines do recommend no more than 2% of the land area up to 1 hectare dedicated to the OFDU. So as a part of any ZBA application, temporary or permanent, the applicants must demonstrate the basis for deviating from that regulation. Again, that regulation being maximum gross floor area. The following planning policy documents must be reviewed: consistency with the provincial planning statement, conformity with the county's official plan, conformity with the town's official plan, and in the case of this particular application, since the PPS is informed by OMAFA's guidelines, the applicant must also demonstrate consistency with the provincial guidelines on permitted uses in prime agricultural areas. At the July 21st public meeting, our Manager of Planning Services, Rita Jabour, to my left, presented a report and presentation. What we summarized was not only the particulars of the proposal, but a thorough planning policy analysis. Since the applicants were also required to demonstrate the appropriateness of the use and to demonstrate no negative impact, the applicants also submitted various reports, all of which have been reviewed and accepted by administration and/or a third-party consultant on behalf of the town. Although delegations from the public were received at the July 21st meeting, some questions from council were posed. As you know, the public meeting was postponed to allow for more questions from the rest of council, as well as further discussion. In addition, since the public meeting, we've received numerous inquiries from not only yourselves, but also residents and members of the public. Ms. Jabour will therefore walk you through a presentation that summarizes the main themes to those questions, to those comments, as well as responses. The planning process is a public process and one that encourages and seeks public input into the proposed land use changes. Following this public feedback and to demonstrate further mitigation, we proposed a few revisions to the temporary zoning bylaw amendment itself, as Mayor Bondi indicated just a few moments ago. Again, Ms. Jabour will walk you through what those proposed revisions are to that zoning bylaw amendment. And lastly, as council is aware, you are the decision maker on ZBAs. Your decision, as you know, must be based on the planning merits of the application. Our job as administration is to provide you with a fulsome planning policy review and our professional opinions on the proposed temporary ZBA. Thank you, Mayor Bondi. If okay with you, we will pass the floor to Ms. Jabour, who can walk us through the.
Thank you, Director Chadwick, and through you, Mayor Bondi. We have a very short presentation for you, which summarizes comments that we have received since before the July 21st meeting and after. So we're going to move on to the next slide, please. So just to summarize again what Director Chadwick has already stated, the proposal is to permit an event space, and the events will be primarily for weddings, at the subject property, which is located on the 6th Concession Road, in an existing 371 square meter tent as an on-farm diversified use. And again, this is for a temporary period expiring on October 31st of this year, 2025. Next slide, please. Again, thank you. Just a recap of the July 21st public planning meeting. Administration did present on the application thoroughly and prepared a planning report 2025-16, which is attached to the agenda tonight. And it also prepared a bylaw 2464 for council's consideration and had recommended on July 21st for a first and second reading of approval of the bylaw. Delegations were received from representatives for the applicants, as well as 11 members of the public, but the public planning meeting was postponed to this date, August 12th, to allow for the rest of council to ask questions and for further discussion. Next slide, please. So the next series of slides, I know it's a little hard to see, but it is attached to the agenda, is a summary of the comments that we have received, and they're not a fulsome summary of the comments that we've received. These are just the main themes of those comments, because again, we've received several comments, and the response, the official response with respects to the guidelines and with respects to reference to the provincial planning statement, which must have regard to when making a planning decision. So the first main theme is that this proposal does not meet the intent of what an on-farm diversified use is supposed to be for as per provincial guidelines, and I'm referring to the provincial guidelines published in 2016 by OMAFA and the Town of Essex zoning bylaw. So in response to that, and this is a direct reference from those guidelines that are published in 2016 from page 17, OFDUs, the intended use of OFDUs are to enable farm operators to diversify and supplement their farm income. And in this point, we have underlined what a farm operator is because there really isn't any definition for farm operator in provincial planning policy, but Statistics Canada does provide a definition for a farm operator. And a farm operator is referred to as a person responsible for the management decisions and operating in agricultural operations. They do not need to be involved in the planting or harvesting of crops. Secondly, OFDUs do not need to be related to agriculture. Again, from the guidelines on page 17, OFDUs that can coexist with agriculture without conflict are also permitted, in addition to those OFDUs which actually have a connection to agriculture. Thirdly, a wide variety of uses that may qualify as an OFDU, again, from the guidelines, page 26, and these include all types of commercial uses that are appropriate in agricultural areas. And lastly, and I believe Director Chadwick alluded to this earlier, our zoning bylaw restricts on-farm diversified uses to maximum building footprints, 90 square meters or less, to ensure that OFDUs are secondary to agriculture. However, if you look at page 19 of the guidelines state that the preferred approach to limiting area for OFDUs is to base it on the total footprint of the use on a lot coverage basis and not the floor area of the buildings or the outdoor storage area. Next slide, please. So the next big theme that we received is that this use is not secondary to an agricultural use or a commercial use, is the predominant use of the lands. And now in response, there are 27 hectares of the subject lands that are located outside of the wetland that are actually designated agriculture, and they are under active agricultural production for the growing and harvesting of cash crops, and specifically wheat, beans, and corn, which are the common cash crops that we find in Essex County. These crops are grown, harvested, and sold for profit. And these 27 hectares are legally part of the subject lands. They cannot be separately conveyed from the rest of the lands. And this has been verified through the applicant's legal counsel on title. The guidelines, and this is from page 5, recognize that the growing of crops and raising of animals for the purpose of gain or reward is an agricultural use. The secondary nature of the OFDU is determined spatially and on a temporal basis, and this was analyzed in depth in the planning report presented on July 21st. The use itself is proposed temporarily until October 31st of this year, 2025. The use must cease following this date. It cannot continue without a future zoning amendment. So that is one of the reasons why this use can be considered temporary. The use is insignificant in size than the farming operations, and we have demonstrated in the planning report and in the presentation on July 21st that the area of the tent, and also recently we've demonstrated through the applicant's planner, the area that is used for outdoor ceremonies is still less than 2%. Next slide, please. The third theme that we've received through comments is concerns with the impact to the provincially significant wetland and conformity with county policies respecting the natural environment and natural heritage. As we had detailed, an ecological memo to evaluate the impact of the use on the PSW, the wetland, was prepared by the applicant by a professional biologist. The memo concluded that there is no potential to negatively impact the wetland due to the distance of the event space from the PSW. Therefore, there is no need for further environmental assessments. The conclusions of that memo were reviewed and confirmed by the Town of Essex's third-party ecological consultant, LGL Limited. That third-party reviewer is also the peer reviewer for the County of Essex, so they are familiar with county policies respecting natural environment too. Next slide, please. And finally, one of the biggest concerns, main themes we've received is about the noise, the vibration, and the traffic issues that may result because of this use, as well as the compatibility of the use with the rural area. So OFDUs, in response, OFDUs are required to be compatible with and cannot hinder surrounding agricultural operations. And this is directly from the guidelines. We have highlighted, underlined agricultural operation because impacts on agricultural operations is what's important here. Surrounding agricultural operations are actually defined in the guidelines on page 12, and they're interpreted to mean property on which the use is located and the area of potential impact around the property. So you're looking at potential impacts to the subject lands, the agricultural operations on the subject lands, and any area around the subject lands. That area of impact outside of the subject lands may vary depending on the use and the anticipated impacts. So in this case, noise impacts were measured to sensitive receptors, such as residential dwellings that were nearby the subject lands. From the planning memo, from the noise memo prepared by the applicants, one sensitive receptor, it was a residential dwelling, was identified, and that was the dwelling at 66756 Concession Road. And the noise memo concluded that the predicted sound level and noise modeling to that dwelling was significantly below the day and evening time period limits prescribed by the town's noise bylaw, Bylaw 2422. And it was also determined that the sound levels meet the noise limit in ministry provincial guidelines. Next slide, please. Continuing with the theme of noise and vibration, it was the opinion of the noise consultants who were hired by the applicants that there would be no perceptible ground-borne vibration at the residential dwelling from the amplified sounds. And this opinion was verified by the Town of Essex's third-party noise consultant who had agreed with that conclusion. It was suggested in the noise memo prepared by the applicants that the Hearn facility confirms at the beginning of each event that sound levels don't exceed 90 decibels, measured 3 meters from each speaker, using a calibrated Type 2 sound level meter. The memo also noted that given the remote location of the facility, it remains reasonable to expect that sound emitted from the venue may be audible at the residential dwellings. So when weighing the evidence from the noise memo, council should consider how effectively those noise impacts can be mitigated before allowing different uses in agricultural areas. So examples of mitigations could include the enforcement of the Town of Essex's noise bylaw and noise bylaw exemption requests with conditions. Next slide, please. And finally, with respects to the comment about concerns with traffic, this was explained in depth in the presentation on July 21st and in the planning memo prepared by town staff. The use is proposed to generate 30 to 40 vehicles to and from the site for events. Concession 6 is a local road. It's designed to provide access to and from properties. Concession 6 is gravel and has a posted speed limit of 80 kilometers per hour. No traffic, based on that information, no traffic issues were anticipated because projected numbers of vehicles is low. The use is temporary. It ends on October 31st of this year and is intermittent, occurring between Fridays to Sundays. There are no significant intersections or neighboring uses which would pose a traffic hazard. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as Director Chadwick referred to earlier, we have received a number of public comments on the application since July 21st. And in response to the public feedback that we received at the public planning meeting of July 21st, and following that, we are proposing modifications to Bylaw 2464 for Council's consideration tonight. And that's to permit the event use until October 31st of 2025 and only from Friday to Sunday. And this was revised from the previous bylaw, which proposed the use continue for 6 months following the adoption of the bylaw. We're told that uses will cease on October 31st of this year. Therefore, there is no reason to continue with any longer than that. We are also told that they namely occur on the weekends. So there has been a condition placed in that bylaw that states that events shall only occur from Friday to Sunday. The bylaw has also been amended to require that events, excluding wedding ceremonies and cocktail hours, because they are a part of this use, be located within the tent space and that the tent space shall be enclosed. And what is meant by the tent space shall be enclosed is that we heard from the applicants that there are wall flaps on as part of this tent. So the wall flaps would serve as an enclosure. And then lastly, we've removed the condition respecting compliance with the noise memo because we've found out that we cannot include conditions in a zoning bylaw amendment. The zoning bylaw must only regulate items with respects to the use and location of the lands, buildings and structures. The recommendation of the noise memo were not in respect to those things. So finally, we want to remind council of next steps in this application. Next slide, please. We've prepared for you Bylaw 2464 with modifications for your consideration tonight. And tonight you may fully adopt Bylaw 2464 for 3 readings. You may provisionally adopt the bylaw for 2 readings, where the third and final reading is read at the next council meeting on September 2nd. You may defer the bylaw in its entirety until the September 2nd meeting if more information is required or significant concerns continue to be raised. Or you may deny Bylaw 2464, where the notice of denial will be sent to the applicant and all persons requesting notification of the decision, and a 20-day appeal period will take effect. Staff's recommendation continues to be provisional adoption of Bylaw 2464. And as a reminder to council, there is a timeline in the Planning Act for when you need to make a decision by, and it's 90 days following the submission of a complete application. So this application was deemed complete on June 16th. You have until September 16th to make a decision. Otherwise, it becomes a non-decision, which is appealable. Thank you.
Chair, I just want to make a comment on the last slide. So according to section 4.13.3 of our procedural bylaw, a bylaw may proceed to a second reading at the same meeting that it received a first reading, provided that the first reading was supported by at least 2/3 of the members of council present and entitled to vote. And a bylaw shall not proceed to a third reading at the same meeting that it received a first and second reading unless specifically approved by the clerk, and the third reading was supported by at least 2/3 of the members of council present and entitled to vote. So I just wanted to add that context to the options that were provided to you. So if we're trying to do 2 readings, it needs to be supported by at least 2/3 of council. And if we're trying to do 3 readings tonight, it needs to be approved by the clerk. So you would have to explain to me why I should approve it, and I'll determine whether or not I would approve the 3 readings to be moved forward. And then it needs to be supported by at least 2/3 of council. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Director Malanjukulo, and thank you, Mr. Bohr, for that good recap. That was a really good recap. At this point, we still have members of council. One was absent and one didn't fully get to ask their questions. So I'd like to open it up to members of council. We do have our delegates that have returned. We do have our proponents and their planner and their lawyer that have also returned to answer our questions. So at this time, I will open it up to members of council. Oh, sorry, Mr. Chilman.
We do have our noise expert who's participating remotely because he's not available to attend today. So if there are any questions about the noise reports or anything to do with the noise, he's available. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And welcome, Mr. Novak, virtually. Councillor Kim Verbeek.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I don't have a lot right out of the hop. A lot have been answered for me. For the proponent, when I was on site visiting and having a lovely tour, thank you for hosting me. I was told that you are only hosting events up to 200, but when we were in the tent, it was explained that you could host up to 500 or 600. It seems obvious because it's so huge. Is I'm just wondering about that. Is there an intent? Like, why would it be such an oversized structure if the idea isn't to eventually host larger groups? That's my first question.
So through you, Madam Mayor, and to Ms. Verbeek, the capacity of the outdoor space is 380 people. And the owners of the Hearn Group, of DBS Hearn, the owners have restricted that to 200 because of the type of event that they're looking to host there. It's events more than weddings, but it's more boutique, higher end events. And so it would only be one event on a weekend that there is an event, and it would only be to a maximum of 200 people. That is what they have restricted the events to.
I thought Mr. Hearn said it could hold as many as 5 or 6 when we were just having a sidebar there talking. Also, I'm just, as Ms. Jabor stated, in the fall, these uses will stop. This is a temporary to last until, October. What's the next steps? You've built this fabulous facility, this event center. You're not going to just stop using it in October. What's the next step?
Thank you. Through to you, Mayor, to Councillor Verbeek. The intent is to take a look at the septic system that's on the site and determine capacity and determine if there's going to be anything required to amend that septic system to accommodate a 200-person event. With that, yes, there is an intent to come back to council and request a full bylaw amendment that would recognize the on-farm diversified use.
Okay, thank you very much. Through the mayor again. I guess then the next question is it to continue to operate as a big outdoor event center? Or is there any talk of eventually, becoming an indoor structure? And also how the septic system, so it's not capable of receiving handling 200 guests, or it needs to be reviewed to see if it is?
We'll go to Director Chadwick. She
Yeah,
has her
sorry.
hand up.
You, Madam Mayor, Councillor Verbeek, those are all intriguing questions and questions of interest. As you know, before us, we have a temporary zoning bylaw amendment for council to make a decision on. In the future, should the applicant have interest in applying for a permanent facility, there are several things that are required as a part of that application. First and foremost, an engineer's report approved by the chief building official for sanitary services, as well as a full review based on planning policy as indicated PPS County OP's zoning bylaw, Town OP and OMAFA guidelines. We would essentially be starting from scratch with receiving a brand new application. We would be starting from scratch with our planning policy review, technical review that includes the permanency and what does that mean for impacts on noise, impacts on services, traffic, etc. So it would essentially be a brand new application. And again, to remind council, although of interest, we're here for the temporary nature.
Through the mayor. So thank you, Ms. Chadwick. And I will be 100% honest. If that's been answered in the barrage of information reports and emails that have been going around, as you know, I was away for the first meeting. And if you have already answered that, which you probably have because you've been very informative with us, I apologize that I had to ask again. So your intent is just to take it starting in the fall, next steps to make this a permanent outdoor event center?
Consideration through you, Madam Mayor, that's under consideration. As Director Chadwick pointed out, there's lots of other things that have to go into consideration, but yes, that's one of the things we're looking at. The other thing that happens in October, the weather changes. So typically, we don't hold events in November, December into the winter months. So that will give time to do some of the things that Director Chadwick indicated would need to be done if we proceed down that road.
Just to the point, so the engineer reports, all of these next steps to the application process go through flying colors. By next summer, you expect to be operating a large outdoor wedding event center. Is that the idea? Not next year, it's when you get to it. That's the goal, or is that what I'm hearing?
So to clarify, there is no guarantee. Just like before you tonight, you are decision makers on a temporary zoning bylaw, but also the permanent. If the applicant were to apply, you would be the decision makers. There is no guarantee that even administration at this point could support. We have no permanent application for review at this point. So there is no guarantee. It's really up to council at the end of the day. And of course, based on evidence and policy review.
So tonight, we're just focusing on the application for the temporary use for the rest of this year till the end of October. To remind council that Councilor McGuire Blaze did put forward a motion at the last meeting in support of, I believe, first and second reading. So that motion can be brought up when everybody has had a chance to speak again. Councilor Mady.
You, Chair. I guess it'd be to CEO Grusevich. At the beginning of the meeting, you mentioned a fourth planner. I was looking through here. I don't see a fourth report. Do we have that report or no?
Through the chair, I can pass it to Director Chadwick to elaborate, but we do have an external consultant on hand just for town reviews. So what we did after the last meeting was we had them peer review the bylaw just to ensure that it was in line with planning practices. And so that's the fourth planner. There wasn't a formal report issued, but there was edits made that you're seeing incorporated tonight from that consultant on retainer for the town.
Explain on the work that outside planner, or Mr. Bohr, thank you.
So NPG Planning Consultants is assisting us with some planning work as we look for a senior planner. And we had some questions regarding the bylaw with respects to conditions in the bylaw with respects to the noise memo. How do we tie the zoning bylaw to the noise memo? So we had asked NPG Planning Consultants to determine whether we can tie it to the noise memo, and they told us that we could not. Conditional zoning has to be enabled through official plan policies. And not only that, the Planning Act has to pass, through the Planning Act, there has to be Ontario regulation that states what conditions you can include in a zoning bylaw. So that fourth planner, being NPG, provided us assistance with getting some clarity on how to draft this bylaw. But they also informed us that there are many examples of wedding events that occur in tents, and gave us some examples of municipalities and how they regulate them as well in terms of OFDU.
So you said that there was some other changes that were made because of the report. Was that just in the bylaw, or because the planning report also got changed too? Was there? I don't know if they're connected or not.
Thank you. Through the mayor. There were changes made to bylaw 2464, and those were the changes that we had explained in our presentation. So limiting events to Fridays and Sundays, because we heard from the public that there's no guarantee that these were only going to occur on Fridays and Sundays. Limiting the bylaw to expire on October 31st, 2025, instead of 6 months following the adoption of the bylaw, because we heard from the applicants that they're planning on ceasing the use on October 31st. So those were the two changes, as well as the change respecting the noise memo, not connecting it to the zoning bylaw because legally we cannot, as well as recognizing the outdoor spaces for the wedding ceremonies and for the cocktail hours, because it was brought up by members of the public that these uses also occur on the lands and that they should also be considered as part of the on-farm diversified use. And that's correct. that wasn't initially recognized. So the bylaw now recognizes those outdoor areas. We had Miss Lazaline, who's the applicant's planner, provide us with a revised calculation that now includes the outdoor areas for the ceremonies and the cocktail hours, as well as the lodge, as well as the 371 square meter tent, to demonstrate that it is still below 2%, and it came back at 0.33%, looking at the total area of that property.
Your worship, through to Councillor. Yes, that's exactly what I did. The recalculation was the biggest change that was made in this, to show that it's only 0.3% of the entire lot area. It is well under, and my position still remains the same, that it is consistent with the PPS. It does conform with your official plan policies, and it's consistent with the bylaw.
Any further? Or any other member of council?
Yeah, I still got a couple more. That's
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Councilor Meany.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So yeah, I kind of thought that's what had happened and why the recalculation was done. But when I looked at it, like, I got a big difference. If I took, like, I mean, if I took what the 27 acres should be and what we're actually asking for here, I got a pretty big difference. So then I see it was put into the entire area. Now, when I did the calculation on that, you were under, but it was at like 1.96%. And that leaves like a 364 square meter safety zone. But then I noticed that like none of the pathways through the rest of the land, none of the areas in the wetlands were kind of identified in that as being used.
The wetlands, that's a different situation. That's a passive recreational use that's allowed in the wetland. We're not dealing with that whatsoever. What had to be recalculated was, it was identified to me that the provincial policy statements for an on-farm diversified use, the definition and then the policies within the OMAFRA land use guidelines, is very specific and says the impact on the entire parcel. So the land mass that we were dealing with, which is 98.4 hectares, not just the agricultural land. So it had to be recalculated, and it shows at 0.3%. So it's well under the impact as identified by the OMAFRA land use, saying, 2% is a recommended amount, and at 0.3%, it just shows that the lodge, the tent, the parking area, it is so small that it's very negligible.
Just to follow up on that. Yeah, so, but it also says that you have to incorporate all the land that's used with the amenities, right? For all the on-farm diversified uses. So if we're taking the lodge as an on-farm diversified use and that land being used as part of it, then that should be part of the calculation, right?
In the calculation, you'll see that it did include the lodge in the 0.3%.
For sure the lodge, but then it would be the rest of the land that's used with the lodge, no?
It's just the buildings and the structures, parking area that's identified, associated with the on-farm diversified use.
Sorry, when I read it, I took it as when it identified all the lands being with the use, that's all the lands are going to be used with the use. So that's why like the outdoor venues for the weddings had to be included, the kind of the spots like that, the lodge. So maybe I read it wrong.
Procedural bylaw, we have to speak through the chair. Just got a reminder from the clerk. Thanks.
Your worship, through to Councillor. Yes, you've got the situation where I have identified in my calculation the additional land area where when there's an event going on, somebody can step out of the tent and have a drink, or they can stand by the pond, or they can have the wedding ceremony right at the pond, I have included that extra activity area, and it's part of the 0.3%. Right? The lawn over on the other side of the lodge, that's all part of that passive recreation use that's associated with the hunting and the fishing. It has nothing to do with this on-farm diversified use.
Thank you. Then I guess my mistake is that when you say use with the lodge, and the lodge is a short-term rental unit, right? And it's being rented out, that makes it an on-farm diversified use too, right?
No, what happened is this, it has its own policies and licensing that's associated with it as a short-term lease. But sometimes there's, the bride needs some place to go to the washroom, and she'll use the much nicer bathroom that's in it. So we included it as sort of a secondary part of that on-farm diversified use. It's not identified as the event tent. The event tent is the on-farm diversified use. But we have included the lodge as sort of a secondary for bathrooms and whatnot. And as I had indicated in my report, there's never two events going on at once. So that allows for that lodge to be used for bathrooms and whatnot.
Okay, thank you. The second part is secondary to agriculture. I don't know how much an acre for cash crop is right now. Can anybody tell me that answer?
We're getting asked whether that's relevant or not. Can you just elaborate on maybe why you feel it's relevant, Councillor Mady?
Oh.
Just another reminder to go through the chair, everybody, please.
Sorry, and through the chair. Yeah, sorry. No, it was just because the secondary to agriculture. So we know that the idea here is a beautiful, beautiful event center and boutique weddings, very high-end boutique weddings. And it was expressed to us that the cost of that's quite high. Someone mentioned $20,000 an event, which would make about a $200,000 revenue on that. When I looked around, kind of took a look at how much acres of farmland was being rented for, they were about $700 an acre. So that means that if we took that farmland, that's like $46,000 a year. So to me, that makes the event center the breadwinner and not secondary. It becomes primary at that point.
Could help rephrase Councillor Mady's question. His question is, does that come into play with the on-farm diversified use, the amount of income made for farming versus weddings, if
Through-
that is a policy?
Through you, Madam Chair, and maybe either Chadwick or Director Chadwick or Demore wants to answer it. In our opinion, it does not.
Through the chair, our professional planning opinion is that it doesn't. It's based on spatial terms. So how much does it occupy in terms of the lot coverage of that property, as well as temporal terms. So when does it occur? How frequently does it occur? Of course, as well as those impacts. Thank you.
Questions? Or I can come back to you. Further questions? I do have a few myself. Page 21 of the guidelines. No, I'm just asking questions right now. I'm not trying to influence anybody. I'm asking questions. Page 21 is area of the new building, structures, setbacks, outbacks, storage, landscape areas, berms, laneways, parking are counted as 100%. There is photographic evidence that the pond itself is being used. People are actually in the pond in boats. So in my opinion, I'm not a professional planner, but I do represent people. So there are photographic pictures of people in the pond in their wedding suits. So I think the whole entire area of the pond should be calculated in. There's also, pardon me?
Point of order, just you said you weren't going to sway votes, but that's very,
Yeah, sure.
You're trying to swell
That is the question.
vote.
My question is the pond part of the calculation, and why not when it's been used?
In the calculation, but at 0.3%, even the inclusion of the pond would still have it well below 1%. A. B, you've got the situation where the pond is used for the hunting and the fishing, which is that passive recreational activity associated with the lodge and with the use associated with the wetland and with the pond. So it's not considered part of the on-farm diversified use. It may be used for a moment for a bride to go get some pictures taken, but as an on-farm diversified use, it's not.
So if we get to a stage where this comes back to us, I would like to see the pond calculated in. And also, I did see photos in the bush as well. I don't know how far the bride and groom or the wedding party have gone into the bush, but I do believe that parts of the bush are used. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to go through questions right now. Page 23 of the guidelines that we're all referencing is examples of uses that would not be typically on-farm diversified uses. Uses with high water sewage needs that generate significant traffic, such as large food processors, distribution centers, full-scale restaurants, and banquet halls. So when I read this was kind of one of the things that stood out to me, because we all know when we go to a wedding, if there's 150 people, I don't know, I go to the bathroom every half an hour, maybe every hour. So I think that this is a high use. How do you determine that this is not a high use of water and wastewater?
Okay.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. So we go back to the temporary nature of this application before us. The temporary nature, we also heard and seen documentation pertaining to the temporary portable washrooms that are brought in and the temporary kitchen facilities that are brought in for events as a part of the temporary zoning bylaw amendment application before us. So the permanency of the use is that there are no large scale, a high sewage needs at this point for this application before us. In terms of the traffic generation, again, being seasonal in nature and occasional events as well, the responses to that identified through our report as well as through our presentation just tonight as well. We've provided examples as to why this particular use, temporary in nature, is not considered a large-scale recurring event with permanent structures. Again, any future zoning bylaw amendment application for such a permanent facility would have to conform with these guidelines.
So further on page 31 of the guideline that we're all referencing tonight, it says on the top of it, and it says permitted uses. A building permit is normally required, and it says before construction begins, new buildings, additions to replace, renovate existing structures, if occupancy of the building is changed, to alter, repair, or extend on-site sewage systems. My understanding is that there's some building already in place. And this is all in the same document that we're all talking about. My question right now to administration is, has there been a building that is intended to be used in place that doesn't have a building permit?
For you, Madam Mayor, we're talking the house. They certainly have a permit to be utilized. If we're talking about the tent is for personal use only. The permit's been issued for their use. Not a wedding venue. If it's a wedding venue, they would not have the appropriate washroom facilities at this time. That they would have to bring in off-site portables.
Follow up with that question, and then I have one more question at this time. Is there evidence that our administration has seen with these off-site portables?
Madam Mayor, could you repeat that?
Sure, through you, Chair. Through you, Chair, if they're not allowed to use the building because they don't have a permit for it, my question through the chair to you is, has our administration seen evidence of portable bathrooms?
We have, yes.
Through you, Chair, on page 34 of the same document, 3.1.2, alternative locations. And it talks to the PPS directs growth to settlement areas to create sustainable and vibrant communities. During the comprehensive review, municipalities identify intensification, redevelopment, and designated growth area opportunities. Often these lands already are or could be connected to existing municipal services. The PPS requires that infrastructure and public service facilities be financially viable and protect public health, safety, and the environment. The removal of lands from prime agricultural area can only be considered when there are no reasonable alternatives outside of prime agricultural area. So it comes to if there is insufficient growth opportunities within our settlement areas. So my question to administration, has there been any other investigation of other opportunities? And we have insufficient wedding venues in our area that push us to make sure that we have this because people can't get married because there's not enough places.
Mayor, that section of the guidelines refers to a completely different section of the provincial planning statement that refers to uses that are looking to convert properties from an agricultural use to a non-agricultural use. So it's not in relation to on-farm diversified uses. As we explained, there's a number of on-farm diversified uses, commercial or even industrial in nature, that could be considered OFDUs so long as they meet the criteria. This section of the guidelines is not in reference to this application.
Mayor Shepley has not spoke yet.
We have not one, two, four planners that all say this meets the guidelines for that portion of it. To the residents here, the noise seems to be one of the biggest issues that we're dealing with. At least that's what I've heard. And I met with the Hearns group and inspected the site. I went out with the decibel reader. I see significant changes from what I'm told it initially was to where it is now. And I believe initially there was some real concern with these noises. I really do. And the Hearns group acknowledges that initially there were some issues and they've made considerable steps to mitigate that. So for me, it's temporary in nature and it meets the guidelines. We pay these people a lot of money to advise us. They're the experts in this field, not us. And there's four of them. It would be different if we had two that were disagreeing, where we would have to look at it and say, hey, what are we doing here? But we've got four that agree. And I've seen, if I didn't see the noise mitigation, I would say, hey, we've got a problem here. But I see the noise mitigation that they've put in. I see the effort they've put in, the sound study they did, and the evidence is there for me. I will support this because I believe they're doing the right steps. It's theirs to, they've got a short window here for us to gather more data. This will give us a chance to gather some more data to make sure that they're falling in line with that noise bylaw. But they do meet the guidelines for me. And our planners have told me that, several of them. So that's where I'm at. That's the position I am in. And sometimes we make these decisions and they're not easy. We're gonna have some folks that are leaving here tonight possibly upset with us if this passes. And I understand that, but I have to go with the information I have from the experts, and I trust them. I don't say that lightly. I don't just blindly trust somebody. They've built my confidence since I've been here and through watching them in their career. So I do trust, especially our planners that are sitting to my left. I also have seen the work the Hearns Group have done with the noise mitigation. And unless they go outside of that, and that will be evident because I'm sure there'll be a complaint, and with that decibel reader will come, that information will come back to us as well. So for that, I'm going to support this application, and I hope the rest of my counselors see it the way I do. Maybe they don't, but that's where I'm at.
Any council member that hasn't spoke yet wish to speak before I go back to council members that have already spoken? Okay, Councilor Verbeek.
Madam Mayor, I have speaking notes when it comes time to speak. I thought we were still getting through the question period, and something that you and Manager Carter just spoke about triggered another question, just for clarity. So there's a building with the kitchen and the bathroom that do not have a permit, but one is required and will be obtained in the future. Did you say there is or isn't a permit, and is there one actually needed for the 380 capacity event center tent?
Madam Mayor, all three facilities initially did not have a permit: the bathroom, the kitchen, nor the tent. The tent, they applied for a permit for personal use, meaning the family, for the single family dwelling. Period. They will need to upgrade, if this ever gets approved, now or in the future, additional sewage capacity for an assembly use, AKA a wedding venue. That is not in place. What's there? The washroom and the kitchen facility has an order to comply, do not use personally or publicly. Hence why they're bringing in their portable washrooms. Period. That's it.
Verbeek, any other questions? If not, Councilor Mady, did you want to finish your questions?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. When you were asking about the pond, you also had mentioned that berms should be counted as 100%. And I was really trying to stay away from noise because I think that some of the councilors think it's just a trivial matter. And I don't. But the berms. So first of all, there was a correction on them that the heights were lowered. It looks like an 8-meter berm was lowered to a 6-meter berm, and a 6-meter berm was lowered to 4.6 meter. Is that correct in the changes that happened?
6-meter berm is still 6 meters. The berm out front, we got an accurate calculation as to the height, and I believe it's 4.5 meters. But the one on the side lot line is the original.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, and through the chair. Was the area of the berms accounted for in the calculations?
We can.
Your worship, through to Councillor Mady. No, the area of the berms weren't. It was deemed by the noise engineer to provide noise buffering, and that was sufficient for the function that it's doing.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Yeah, sorry. No, my question was more along the lines that, yeah, the berms are there for noise mitigation. Anything being used as part of the venue, the outside land, the patios. So if those berms are being used for mitigation, then that area should be accounted for 100% in the calculations.
Those, your worship, through to Councillor Mady, those berms were actually constructed a while ago, and they're not part of the on-farm diversified use. They happen to be there that we can use them as noise buffering, but they're not part of the actual on-farm diversified use, which is the activities that are associated with the special events tent.
Thank you. Councilor Beek has a question.
To you, Madam Mayor. These questions keep leading to other questions. This one is for our administration. So tonight, council decides to support this request for temporary and they want to move forward with their events. Does that then apply pressure to our building department, our permits that we know are all waiting in a queue and they're working diligently to keep up on? What will happen? Will you have to hurry up the permit process for this to change the capacity of the tent to permit for event center and then to also process the permit for the bathrooms and the kitchen? Because we have a queue, right? We do have residents waiting. So even if we were to choose to support it, they will still be outstanding a minimum of 2 permits to operate.
For you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Verbeek, it is legislation is what binds us when it comes to processing building permit applications. As with any building permit application, we will ensure that we meet the legislative timeframes. I will defer to our chief building official to specify what that timeframe is for a change of use on a tent, an accessory structure. To my knowledge, I believe it is 10 business days to process and to make a decision, but overall, once received, we are obligated by legislation to make a decision within a certain time frame.
Madam Mayor, just to reiterate the tent. The tent, anyone can apply in Ontario for a tent in their backyard, temporary or permanent. It's permitted for your personal use. This tent is more of a permanent / temporary. It has a steel structure that's permanent. The plastic comes down seasonally. It's permanent. Anyone can apply for that permit. By right, Hearns did, and by law, I had to issue the permit for personal family use, period. Once and if that day ever comes, council approves this off-farm diversified use, then and only then can the Hearns come to the chief building official and apply for a permit for an assembly use. Hope that clarifies. Right now, by law, cannot entertain anything anyone brings to me on that Hearn property relating to assembly use until council approves it.
The clarity.
Members of council, if you haven't spoken, you wish to speak? If not, Councilor McGuire Blaze, did you still want to put forward the motion of first and second reading? And Director, oh, okay. Sure.
Councillor Hammond, just 1 second. Would you like to get the motion on the floor and speak to the motion?
Okay, put forward by Councilor McGuire Blaze, supported by Deputy Mayor Shepley, and that is first and second reading. So I just want to make sure we're all clear on the procedure bylaw that in order for it to pass first and second reading, it needs 2/3 majority. That is 6 out of 8 this evening. Deputy Mayor Shepley?
If we get 5 out of 8, then it automatically is a 1 reading. Am I understanding that correctly?
Automatically 1 reading. It would go for another, the chair would ask for another motion, and that motion could then be for 1 reading.
Yep. Yes, sure. Councilor Meady.
I was just double checking the reports. And on the first report, it does say there's an 8-meter high berm along the frontage of the property and a 6-meter high berm along the northeastern part of the property. So is the 8-meter high berm that got brought down to 4.6 meters then, and the 6-meter berm on the north side? Okay. Then can I ask the noise expert?
Is on the floor. It's been moved by Councilor McGuire Blaze, supported by Deputy Mayor Shepley. Now we're speaking to the motion, which is first and second reading. Council members that wish to speak to the motion. Well, yeah, it's moved and seconded. Councilor Hammond.
Yeah, got a chance to visit a site, gorgeous. I'm in the hospitality business, so I gotta tell you, I wish I was a younger man so I could have the opportunity to work in an establishment like that. And that's what it brings. It brings opportunity for young people to work in a facility of that and get some good training that'll last them the rest of their lives. And the ones that are going to university and college gives them an opportunity to work their way through. Mind you, the people that are attending the weddings, they're not working when they go to college, but the ones that are serving definitely are. And, you know, what a great way to put yourself through college. I put many kids through college through my years. Opportunity. The Hearnses are doing this and trying to get data to see if they want to pursue into an outdoor wedding facility, which I think would be great for the area because there's a lot more popularity in outdoor weddings these days. So it's a great way to go. And you got such a good setup going there. I hope that it turns out for you. It also gives them an opportunity to get a lot of data to decide whether or not they want to do it. It gives us an opportunity to get a lot of data if we pass it. If we don't, then we're outside looking in and we're not going to get a lot of data that we want. We can ensure that they're not using those buildings that they're not permitted to use. We can ensure that the noise levels aren't exceeding. And we get a lot of other information that to address for when it comes time to address it in the future. Just one other thing happened today. John Fancy's family, the mayor told me, gave $50 million to our hospital. That's an amazing amount of money. That's a big nut. And that's what rich families can do to our communities. They can make a big difference. This family's rich. A lot of rich families in our community. They bring a lot to offer if you work with them. I'm voting for.
Chambers. Every member of council gets to speak once to the motion. So Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Mayor. So again, I won't repeat what I said earlier because that's my position as a change. Just wanted to touch on one issue. It was suggested that some of us around council table think the noise issue is trivial. I do not think it's trivial. I believe you, and I knew it was loud. So I want to be clear on that. I don't think it's trivial. I don't take it lightly, and I don't dismiss it. I take your concerns at heart, but I do see the work that's been done, and that's why I was able to make the decision I made. I don't take your concerns lightly.
Any other member of council to the motion? Councilor Mady.
Thank you. And I couldn't agree more. It's a beautiful place. I wish we were sitting here trying to decide if this could be a commercial use, maybe some kind of a rural commercial cluster. Because to me, it really looks like we've got 3 different businesses already operating on the property, plus farming. I think it could be a great example for a use like that. But in front of us, it's all about, do we think that it fits as a on-farm diversified use on its own merit? And I could be much more sympathetic and agree with our deputy mayor if the fact that I wasn't looking at a changed report already. And now I don't know if that change in the report even affects the modeling that our sound council expert had to say. Because I do know a whole bunch about modeling, and if you change something a height by half, that might affect your modeling. And I would need to hear from the expert before I can make that assumption, but I definitely couldn't vote for something on an assumption either. So to me, I think it might fail the test on being secondary to agricultural. I think it looks like it's a primary use. I think the limited area in our own zoning bylaw, we have 90 meters square. We have other on-farm diversified use that have come and asked, maybe not to council, but they're asking for more use, and they've been told no, they can't have more. We have a bed and breakfast that's operating as on-farm diversified use. So I think if the STRU goes to get tested, they would find that that is going to be another use of the property. So I have lots of different reasons why I don't know if I can agree with the provincial planners. And on top of that, I don't know that fourth report that you say came back good. I don't know if that fourth planner reviewed this last report. We know they reviewed a report and they made changes to it, but I don't know if this last report was reviewed by them and if they wanted more changes or not. So I have lots of questions still, and I don't have a clear path to supporting it. That's my take on it.
The motion on the table right now. So any other members of council that haven't spoke to the motion? Councilor Verbeek?
Sure. Through you, Madam Mayor, bear with me. I made notes because I don't speak freely. 6 minutes if I can go fast. It's a lovely facility. It's every single detail to the design, the layout, the creation focuses on the detail and opulence. The marketing of the event center, the website, even like the online booking tool, which is, I know, temporary down for fixing or something, the promotional video of the on-site wedding, it's truly really marvelous. Absolutely. It clearly was lengthy planning into this estate. It looks like someone's dream come true has been created. My first concern is, why was it all created in disguise? When the berms and the lodge first began being built, we were assured that it was a private family residence. Then they were operating.
At this point, we're speaking to the motion. I'm going to allow it.
I didn't ask a question. I made an observation. Then they're operating STUs. Honestly, it's lovely. It was built for that, and that's allowed. But then during my visit, we were told repeatedly that it was a private family residence. So I asked, how many family members live here? And I was assured none. Only the caretakers and the site managers visit the site, and it's mostly on weekends or in preparation, but that no one stays there. They come in from other communities on the weekends. The permits and the process, the building structures, the outdoor kitchens, the bathrooms without services evaluated or permits applied for, operating an event center without proper zoning. It's not, I don't believe that they did not know better. The family, the builders, the architects, the construction crews, they all knew better, but there was a choice made. It seemed like an entitled choice. We're going to do what we want. The sound and the noise, I'm not belittling it. I fully empathize with the residents that are dealing with the noise nuisance. They have been very vocal about the disruption to their lives. I, however, never base my vote on NIMBY or deep pockets or people with connections. I also am very disappointed when I hear any dismissive attitude about the people's grievances. Many years ago, right after I was married, I lived in town briefly on Eiler Ave, lovely home, lovely neighborhood. I couldn't stay long because I wasn't accustomed to the sounds of being in town. I chose to move back because I didn't like, because I prefer the silence during the daytime and the evening sounds of cicadas, crickets, frogs, and owls, not the voices of music or working nearby neighbors. That was my choice. Every year, a neighbor of mine, about 1.5 kilometers away, they have a lot of young people. They have a party at the end of summer and they have a party at the end of school year. And it's a ruckus and they're having a wonderful time, but it is very disruptive. And it's not the music that bothers me because I can hear the music. It's all the screaming voices over the music because when we're together and we're celebrating, we're talking over each other louder and louder and it drives it up. I can't imagine if there was also speeches included and applause and the wonderful sounds of a wedding celebration and almost every weekend. I know that most of us work our butts off during the weekly grind to get to the weekend. And in May through October, we often want our downtime to be in our yards. It's it's painful for these residents to have the sounds just on the other side of the bushes, the speakers, the crowds, the speeches, the cheering. And then when night falls, the party kicks up. This is the experience that anybody within a 2-kilometer radius are experiencing. And we don't need meter readers to know this. And that's okay. But that's not where I'm going to base my vote tonight. Much of this development was done without proper permits or zoning in place. We're only here tonight because neighbors really couldn't stand and take it anymore. So they came to us for help. We aren't here because the proponent, the Hearns Group, decided to take the necessary steps, the ones that anyone building an event center would take in advance of proceeding. Our community has come to us and asked for help. That's what drove us to this point. So the video and the website, it's fully operational. It's fabulous events and breathtaking weddings. At our meeting, Mr. Hearns said that I could never have a wedding there because it's far too expensive for me. It's a venue for elite specific kind of guests. That's great. It was a little ouchy for me to hear, but I'm a big girl. There's been red flags all over this file for me, but the environmental effects are the ones that are my biggest concern. This event center, hunting, fishing lodge, STR facility, private family residence abuts a wetland. And it's identified environmentally significant property, and it's to be protected. We have less and less of these important lands, and we must do what we can to protect the disappearing patches that remain. The critters, the snakes, turtles.
Talking about the wetlands, so point of order, we need to
We're
stick
talking to a vote, and we're allowed to give our opinions.
not about the wetlands. We're not talking about the wetlands or what is happening to them.
Right. So I'm talking about the property that abuts the wetlands. The wetlands abut the property.
I believe, in my opinion, and council can choose to challenge, I believe that the wedding venue is on property that contains wetlands. So I'm going to allow it. If you council so choose to deny it, she's just making a comment. If we just let her speak, she's speaking the voice of what people are having to say. So council can choose to muzzle, but this is a voice of council.
Counselor. All right. So the wetland, I believe the critters, the snakes, the turtles, the frogs, the birds, the bunnies have already been driven back to a patch that hasn't been developed. They don't know where the surveyor's line is. Are they impacted by the sounds, the lights, the traffic, the fireworks? We don't know. So I guess to finally land my vote tonight, I have to ask, we're being asked to support this rezoning application. Is it positive for the town of Essex? What are the positives from this? Jobs, perhaps? Well, when the staff I spoke to live outside of town, may not be all of them. The site manager and the family members both live in LaSalle and Amherstburg. The exclusive catering company that they will only work with also lives in Windsor. And I think it's a wonderful idea because it ensures that all the meals served there are delicious, but they're from Windsor. The guests we're told, are bussed in so that there's less traffic, but so the guests aren't local. I'm told that I couldn't afford a wedding there, so I'm thinking a lot of Essex residents couldn't, so we're not going to be the guests. But are there any negatives? Well, clearly we heard from the residents, their life is being deeply impacted. So that would be one negative. This file's created ripples and unnecessary tensions among our council and our administration. A string of statements, actions, and the order of the process has eroded the trust with the proponents. And last but most importantly, we do not know the effects this will have on the wildlife and the provincially significant piece of wetland that our municipality is blessed to host. So I cannot support it as it is tonight.
Oh, so I apologize to everyone in the audience. We cannot have outbursts. I did not even know. Learning something new. Okay, moving on. I have CEO Jerusevich would like, Councilor McGuire Blaze, did you want to speak last? It's your motion. Okay. CEO Drusevich has something to add, and then we do have something from the proponents in regards to the actual bylaw that I want to allow.
Chair, this is in response to Councillor Mady. So you brought up a good question. So in my opening remarks, I made a statement that there was input received from 4 different planners. I just want to clarify what that level of input was. Our in-house experts being the 2 planners, Lori Chadwick and Rita Jabbour, provided their professional opinion. We had the applicant, Vicky Lasling, provide their professional opinion. We had not a full peer review from our consultant that's on retainer, but they did review the bylaw. So I just wanted to make sure you're clear on what input meant. It wasn't a formal report. It was modifications to the bylaw and conditions of the bylaw.
We will go to Mr. Tolman now. You have something in the bylaw that you would like council to consider.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick comment about the revised bylaw. And again, we've been trying through all of these meetings and with some discussions with administration and with council to try and come to a solution that everyone can live with. And I think that drove some of the amendments to the bylaw. But one of the amendments that's there, and I hadn't seen it before, and I'm just raising it, is the provision that the flaps of the tent have to be down during an event, other than for, I think it said ceremony, wedding ceremonies and cocktail hours. I can't remember exactly what the bylaw said. And I'm wondering if is the idea that the flaps being down will impact the travel of sound, because I have Mr. Novak available and we've been sort of communicating during the meeting, but he has clearly indicated that the flaps being down on the tent will do nothing to mitigate the sound. And so I just don't know where that came out of and what was the reasoning behind and whether it makes any sense for that to continue to be included. I do have Mr. Novak, as I said, available if you'd like to hear from him, but he's clearly indicated that that piece of plastic hanging down will not mitigate or reduce any of the noise that's already there, but it's already below, as you've heard, the noise bylaw.
I'm going to ask you as the proponents, if you would like to ask the mover and the seconder, if you would like to have a modification to the bylaw, and then we will see if the mover and seconder accept, and then we will take it from there.
Thank
So-
you, Your Worship. That's what we'd like to do if they would consider that.
And Deputy Mayor Shepley. So the request is the new bylaw has on there at the bottom. I'm not sure if we can pull it up on the screen. It might be a little challenging to pull up on the screen. Director Chadwick.
Mayor, so under the agenda, it is identified as item 5.2. 5.2 on the agenda. Yes.
Number 2, that the proponents are asking if the mover and the seconder would remove number 2, that the tent structure should be enclosed. So the rest of the bylaw would remain. Councillor McGuire, please.
I'll allow it.
So that is a motion. There you go. Okay. I'm going to go back to my order. Since it's Councillor McGuire Blaze's motion, she can speak last. And I'll go to Councillor Allard, Councillor Guerin, and then Councillor McGuire Blaze.
The Hearns Group property looks immaculate. Got out there and toured it through. It was almost intoxicating. I've talked to a lot of the residents about their concerns, and I'm nervous as heck. I want to make the right decision. I'm on the fence right now. But I do believe when we went out there Rob and Rodney and I went to tour, they were using that facility with the bathrooms as a kitchen. They were preparing food in there, which they're not supposed to be. And it just hints to the idea, we're not supposed to, we're gonna do it anyways. And that's where I'm stuck, is that they've done this all along. They've not included planning and did the right zoning and just went ahead with it. And I feel that that's what they're gonna do. So I don't know if our votes here today count, but I just want to say I'm on the fence, and I'd like to hear more from our rest of our counselors.
Councillor Allard, I have Councillor Guerin and then Deputy Mayor Shepley, then Councillor McGuire-Blake.
Thanks to the mayor. This is a job, guys. This is what we're voted to do. We're going to have contentious files come before us. This is not the first. It's not going to be the last. This is what we're in place to do. So got to spare everybody about with the whole, all this stuff about the pressure on us and that. You got to think about the application and only the application, and do your homework and make the decision that's best for, that you think is best for yourself. We're not experts. No one on this side of the table is experts, and no one on that side of the table is experts. We're getting opinions from experts. We should be listening. Ask the questions, listen again. I feel like this applicant's being asked or being put through what seems to be higher standards than we've done in the past with other applications. The grilling that we're giving them and the extra things that we're asking of them. We have to look at the application before us. If somebody goes out right now and builds a building on their property and doesn't apply for a permit, and we find out about it, we send bylaw there and we find out, yes, he did build it without a permit, but it complies. We don't tell him to tear it down. We don't tell him he's not allowed to get a permit. We put him back through the proper procedures and we give him his permit. We don't think about what he did before or what he might do later on. That's my opinion on that. My take on this, based on my findings, which is solely being based on the request for temporary approval, which expires at the end of October. Looking at the application, nothing more than that. The question I keep asking myself is, what grounds do we as council actually have to deny the application? We've heard from our administration, we've heard from the public. Our administration team has done its due diligence with respect to the application. We as councilors have also been invested in the file. We have all visited the site. Administration has offered all of its findings. It has answered all the questions put forth to them by both council and the public in a manner that satisfies myself. Administration stands by its opinion still that the applicant's request is in line with that of the provincial policy statement, which spells out clearly the definition of an on-farm diversified use. I've also looked over the OMAFRA guidelines, and to me, this application meets their criteria as well. Again, not an expert, looked at it, read it, asked the questions. We're hearing from the experts that the town hired, and that's where I'm sitting on with it. So to me, the application itself meets the requirements and meets the policies of the town. The main thing some of us are struggling with respect to the possibility of noise exceeding allowable limits, as per the noise bylaw, and how it may negatively affect, in my opinion, which is a couple of neighboring residents who live within 1 kilometer of the applicant's address. That's why we have a noise bylaw, and that's why we have bylaw enforcement team. The noise factor in itself should not be the deciding part of our decision-making process. It can be a concern, but a concern that is separate in itself to the application, a concern that is no different from one application we get to the next. So the noise concern itself is not a reason to deny the application. We must have trust in our bylaw department when needed to monitor and enforce any such noise complaints as they are reported. That is what I expect of them anytime in our town for any complaints we get, regardless of the application. Some of the other factors I consider when coming to a decision whether to deny or permit the application based on all the possible impacts are the nature of the impact. Is the impact temporary or is it permanent? We've been told tonight it's temporary. It expires on October 31st. So in this case, it's temporary. The scope of the impact, how many people are directly impacted? In my opinion, it's a very small amount of people that may be impacted by this application being approved. And alternatives, are there alternative solutions to minimize the impact of the noise if noise is a concern for any of us? Yes, the applicant's been receptive to all the alternatives with respect to the noise. So in summary, I feel the application itself is fair and meets the requirements as put forth by our administration team. And if there are any future noise complaints that should come from the approval of this application, that they be handled accordingly by our bylaw enforcement team as per our bylaw. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Shepley, did you wish to speak? Okay, here, I'll just pass you this for a second then. Thank you. I have a lot of comments, but I think I'm going to save majority of them. I do for another day. I do want to say that in February, I went out to the property. I thought it was beautiful. And I jumped in with 2 feet and I thought, yeah, this is amazing. Let's go. Let's give all the green lights. Then 2 days before July 21st, coming home from Windsor, visiting my grandma in the hospital, decided to swing by and I visited the neighbor's property and I heard the noise myself. And when I heard the noise myself, it changed my opinion. And I don't believe any authors of the reports have been to neighboring properties at night when weddings are taking place. I believe every single council member has gone out to the proponent's property. I've gone twice, deputy mayor a few times, said he almost hit a deer on the way there once. You know, like it's the roads. The roads are an issue. The traffic is an issue. The dust is an issue. And the noise is an issue. We can't discount the noise. And I do have a lot more comments, but for now, I'm going to save the rest of them. I just want to say that I went out there and that changed my opinion. And I cannot support it. And I think that we need more information. I was aware that we did have a peer review. I wasn't aware that was just on the bylaw. To me, the biggest question that we have in front of us, is this technically an on-farm diversified use? And if I was going to vote yay or nay, I would say no. I have tons of evidence. I'm getting more and more documents from residents. Maybe they're not qualified planners, but sometimes that's how things get brought to attention, is challenging. Council is here to challenge administration and to represent the public. And sure, every council member is going to have a different opinion and we're going to, vote on our way. And that's fine. And it's healthy. Having this debate is healthy. But as of right now, I can't support it because I do believe that there's more work to be done on this file. I also believe that they've had temporary use since 2023, all of 2024. Thank you. Councilor McGuire-Blaze.
Thank you, through the chair. So I want to acknowledge the concerns that we've received from the residents regarding the Hearn property. I understand that your neighborhood has changed. It is not the neighborhood that you bought into when you first bought your properties. I understand that some now have neighbors that they didn't have prior to COVID. That's different. You're obviously going to hear your neighbors when they're in their backyard. Things change. It's louder than it was before. You can hear it. And I understand that you can hear the noise. It's not as quiet as it used to be. That's a valid observation. But the question before council is not whether it's too loud, it's louder than it used to be. The question is, do we allow a rezoning to permit these events to take place legally? From what we've seen, the Hearn family has gone above and beyond to ensure that they are compliant with our bylaws. That matters. If they are following the rules and they continue to follow the rules, and all indication from administration, from what I've seen on property, they are trying to comply. They are following the rules at this time. So I don't see how we can justify denying this application. We need to take a look at the facts. We need to only look at those. We can't take a look at speculation on what might happen in 2026. We have to take a look at what we're doing right now. Taking a look at the past, if we did that, nothing would happen in Essex. We can't just focus on what happened and who they are. We have to focus on what is happening right now and how do we move forward with it. Councillor Guerin said the exact same things that I want to be saying. There are many instances in this municipality where people do things without asking permission first. They have come to this council table before us. We don't just say, no, that's it, you can't. You have to tear it down. You can't have that driveway. You have to get rid of your porch. We don't do that. We send our bylaw, we send our building out there and we say, fix it, bring it into compliance, and we do the job and we pass it. That's what we're taking a look at right now. Should council say no because someone has a disagreement with the applicant? No. We are elected officials. We are expected to set personal feelings aside and make decisions based on facts, expert advice, and the law. We cannot be moved by not in my backyard arguments when our policies and professional administration say otherwise. We have had so many professionals take a look at this. We have literally had hundreds of questions go to our staff. They have been bombarded
with this file for 2 weeks, maybe even more, but for the last 2 weeks that we have been asking questions, it's been absolutely, in my opinion, insane. There should be no more questions to be asked because there were so many questions. Asking if it fits within the OMAFRA, how many times does our administration, the people we pay, have to tell us it does? I trust that our administration knows what they're talking about. I trust that our administration has done their research and isn't just making a decision without looking at the facts. And I trust that our administration is doing something that's going to move our municipality forward and not hold us back. So I'm going to trust in our administration. I'm going to trust in the advice that was given to us. And I do sympathize with residents who are living in an area that might be a little different than it was a few years ago. But it fits within our bylaws. And as long as it continues to fit within our bylaws, and as long as they continue to go forward in compliance, and as long as we continue to keep an eye on this, I don't see why we cannot pass a temporary rezoning for we're looking at 3 months. And in 2026, if they're interested in pursuing this again, we're going to do this all again. We're going to do this all again in 7 months. So for right now, I'm in favor of passing the temporary zoning, letting these few weddings continue for the year, and now taking a look at it after they've come into compliance, and they're going to come back to us asking for a permanent rezoning if that is what the applicant chooses to do. But that is going to be a whole separate issue, and we will have this conversation all over again. So I'm in favor for it. Obviously, it's my motion. Thanks.
The deputy mayor has asked for a recorded vote.
The motion on the table is the motion being presented tonight by administration so that the planning report be received and that bylaw 2464 be read a first and second time and provisionally adopted on August 12th, 2025. As amended to remove the number 1I, I believe. Number 2I. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Shepley, how do you vote? Deputy Mayor Shepley supports. Councillor Verbeek, how do you vote?
Opposed.
Councillor Verbeek opposes. Councillor Allard, how do you vote? Councillor Allard opposes. Councillor McGuire-Blaze, how do you vote?
Support.
Councillor McGuire-Blaze supports. Councillor Guerin, how do you vote?
Support.
Councillor Guerin supports. Councillor Hammond, how do you vote?
Support.
Councillor Hammond supports. Councillor Media, how do you vote?
Oppose.
Councillor Media opposes. Mayor Bondi, how do you vote? Mayor Bondi opposes. The motion fails.
This time I will put it out to council. Excuse me.
Decorum. Quorum.
Excuse me. Yeah.
Everyone, I'm talking.
That was very inappropriate of Mr. Larry Snively for threatening council members. I apologize for that. At this time, I will seek any other motions from council, if there so be it, or we could have our staff present options. Councilor McGuire-Blaze.
Okay, I put a motion on the floor to pass one reading. The amended bylaw, one reading.
Supported by Deputy Mayor. Do you want to ask for a recorded vote? So now we'll go to one reading. Council, now we'll be speaking to this motion.
I just have to ask because we're about to have a very important vote. And there were two of our council members that were just threatened with a finger point. Are they feeling intimidated before we vote? Because we can't have that.
The disturbance was asked to leave the building, and so I see he has exited. And so at this point, I'll let council decide if they wish to continue.
It was a very direct threat at their political future. So I want to make sure they're comfortable making a public vote at this point because I'm kind of shook by what happened.
Motion on the floor. if a council member chooses not to vote to the motion, it's an opposition. It counts as an opposition, but you don't have to vote if you don't want to vote to the motion. We'll leave it to the chair to see how she'd like to proceed, but you don't have to vote to the motion if you don't feel like you want to vote to the motion.
I will seek the feedback from council to see if they wish to have a recess or wish to keep proceeding forward. I will look to my council colleagues to see what they would like to do. Deputy Mayor.
That's just for everybody to get a minute to collect themselves and then come back and vote.
So, Councilor McGuire, please.
Thanks. I support a recess, but maybe can we clear the chambers for the recess?
If the recess is talking about business of the town, it needs to be open unless we're going into close for some reason under the Municipal Act.
Stand up and walk, go grab water, go to the bathroom. We can take a few minutes to go outside. Councilor Verbeek.
Through the mayor, I want to be clear. I'm prepared to move forward, but out of respect and concern for my colleagues that were just openly threatened, I want to find out if they're comfortable proceeding or if we need to take a break.
I have Councilor Mady.
To you, Chair. First of all, I wouldn't let one resident's bad behavior affect my decision making tonight. I could excuse that. But I don't think we have the ability to take a recess right now anyways. We have a motion on the floor, and I do believe procedurally we have to sit in our chairs until that motion is done, unless there's a reason to go on camera. And if the reason to go on camera is to talk about maybe possible legal action about threats to council, then I could definitely approve that too.
Okay. How are you, Councilor Allard?
I go ahead with it. I would like to see some legal action because this is the second time that person.
Yes. Okay. So at this point, we'll proceed with the vote. The deputy mayor is again asked for the recorded vote, so I think we'll proceed with the vote. Director Malandrukala will take the vote.
Andy, through you, I just want to remind council what's on the floor. So what's on the floor is that the report be received and that bylaw 2464 be read a first time with the amendment to removing section 2.1 of the bylaw. 1.2 of the bylaw.
We know what you're talking about. Okay.
Deputy Mayor Shepley, how do you vote? Deputy Mayor Shepley supports. Councilor Verbeek, how do you vote?
I oppose.
Councilor Verbeek opposes. Councilor Allard, how do you vote? Councilor Allard opposes. Councilor McGuire Blaze, how do you vote?
Support.
Councilor McGuire Blaze supports. Councilor Guerin, how do you vote? Councilor Guerin supports. Councilor Hammond, how do you vote? Councilor Hammond supports. Councilor Mady, how do you vote? Councilor Mady opposes. Mayor Bondi, how do you vote? Mayor Bondi opposes by a score of 4-4. The motion is defeated.
At this time, I'm wondering if administration can walk through what we could do or what our next steps are, please.
Mayor Bondi. As identified earlier on in our presentation, council has before you an application, a planning application where a decision must be made. If a council is at an impasse and does not make decision, then through essentially a lack of decision, we are at a position of non-decision. That date, that 90-day window under the Planning Act started June 16th and ends on September 16th. So a decision must be made before September 16th. Otherwise, at that point becomes non-decision or lack of decision and is considered appealable to the OLT.
Any direction from council? Councilor Hammond.
Through you to Lori. So if we just turn it down today, then they could proceed to, challenge it sooner? Or,
Through you, Madam Mayor. So Councillor Hammond, if I understand your question correctly, the scenario is, should council deny the zoning bylaw amendment tonight? Would the process begin sooner? The answer is the decision would be effective today and would be appealable for 20 days. And so after 20 days, or between 20 from now until 20 days from now, is appealable, the decision in the scenario to deny. If I may, Madam Mayor, just one more point. Council also, if you recall our slide pertaining to your other options, if you require additional information, or if you would like to receive the information, you still have the option to defer your decision to a later date.
Director Chadwick, about our options. My worry is if we defer, council members are going to be even further bullied, to be honest. I'm just going to say that. Sorry, I don't know. Councillor Guerin, did you have a motion?
Asking it's open-ended. By whom? Further, by whom?
By whom? No. But no, no. By the fellow that just threatened our council members.
Okay. So you're looking for someone to make a motion to deny it, right? Flat out?
Well, if you want to, I'm looking for council directions. Council's meeting.
Well, it sounds like we want to kick this up and wash our hands of it. That's what it sounds like to me.
Well, we didn't get a motion to support. It was a 4-4. So the other thing we could do is defer it and bring back more. That's why. Or we could make a motion to deny, or we could leave it hanging. Councillor Guerin.
Well, then that motion would have to come from, I think, one of the four that opposed, if you want to deny.
There could be a motion to deny. If we want to leave it hanging, it's a motion to table. It also table the bylaw for now and see what happens. So you have the motion to deny, motion to postpone, or motion to table, which kind of kicks it into nowhere. So that's up to council.
Motion on the table to table it. Let's table it to September 15th. Is that the day before their time runs out? Table it to September 15th.
It would be a motion to postpone until September 15th.
My thing wasn't turning on. My mic wasn't turning on. Okay. So Director Malandrukula will clarify. The motion is to postpone until September 15th. Is that a regular council?
Council meeting day, but we have the ability to schedule a special meeting prior to it's open.
So it could be a special council meeting starting earlier. We have that free. Councilor Verby?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So if we table this to right before, oh, okay, it's just a question about the motion. I'm not clear. So then we come back and do what then?
Can you speak through the chair, please? Because we didn't hear what you said.
He asked what happens then, and I said, we do this all again.
Mayor Shepley.
Or no?
Motion to defer, yes.
If I may.
Yep.
So because we can't make a decision, we're going to make an indecision. And then we're going to do this all again in September. I don't understand what we're just playing games here. This is ridiculous. We need to make a decision tonight, I think. We're either going to support it or we're not, or we're going to kick it down the road. And that to me is an indecision. That we could have done that with the first reading. We could have done one reading tonight. We would have had one reading couple weeks from now, and then we would have still been at the September to make a final decision. This is silly. So then when September 15th comes along, we've got to make a decision on 3 readings in one night, and we'll never get 2/3 of council in order to make, or more, 2/3 of council for that to happen. So this is ridiculous. What are we doing?
Discussing, looking, Director Malin-Juklo.
Remind council of your ability to make a motion to go into close to receive legal advice if you think it's necessary.
Okay. But at this point, we have a motion on already to defer. So Councilor McGuire, please.
Into my motion.
Second that rescind.
Motion is rescinded. Looking for a motion to see if we wish to go in. Councilor Guerin.
Going to close.
Councilor Guerin, supported by Deputy Mayor Shepley. There's really no discussion on this one. All in favor? Yeah, okay, I will. So we have a motion to go and close. At this point, members of the public will be asked to leave. And we will resume our YouTube meeting after. Meeting.